Good afternoon. Thank you all very much for joining us today. My name is Elizabeth Ennin. It is my honor to serve as the chair of the SJC Pro Bono Committee, or to use its more formal name, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services. I'm very pleased to welcome all of you to the 2021 Adams Award ceremony. I would like to extend a special welcome to our three award recipients, Samuel Breyer, Michael Juzik, and Bethany Sirota. I would also like to welcome Chief Justice Kimberly Budd and Justice Elspeth Seifer, and thank them for carving out time in their very busy schedules to participate in the program. For so many people, this has been a difficult year. Many of our neighbors here in Massachusetts are facing serious legal issues, but do not have enough money to hire an attorney. Our heroic legal services organizations provide free help to as many people as they can, but the need is always greater than the supply. As a result, pro bono legal services are a lifeline for individuals who are struggling with evictions, domestic violence, deportation, disability, and other serious issues. The need is great, and we need to push ourselves as a legal community to meet more of it. An individual who does not have access to an attorney may not have meaningful access to justice. It is against this sobering backdrop that we take a few minutes today to celebrate attorneys who have selflessly provided hundreds of pro bono hours of service, all in an effort to provide access to justice for as many individuals as possible. The Adams Award ceremony is dear to my heart. I have had the privilege of participating in it as chair of the SJC Pro Bono Committee for the last 3 years, and it is truly one of my favorite events of the year. It is such a balm to hear about decent and generous people using their legal skills to make the world a better place. I recently heard someone say that this event is always a breath of fresh air. It is indeed. I can guarantee you that hearing about the service of our 3 Adams Award recipients will be uplifting and energizing. While we are here to celebrate the extraordinary pro bono service of these 3 individuals, our not so hidden agenda is to give them a platform to tell their stories so that others will be inspired to become engaged or more engaged with providing pro bono legal services. We are also here to recognize and thank all of the new members of the Supreme Judicial Court Honor Roll. These attorneys, legal organizations, and law students have donated many hours of pro bono service and play a critical role in our efforts to increase access to justice in Massachusetts. I'd like to take a minute to tell you a bit about the SJC Pro Bono Committee. The justices of the SJC created this committee in 1999. Since that time, the committee has been chaired by individuals whose shoes are very hard to fill. Most recently, Sue Finnegan and Kathy McGrath. The goal of the committee is to promote pro bono legal services throughout the Commonwealth. In pursuit of that goal, we engage in the following activities. We recognize and celebrate outstanding pro bono service. We visit Massachusetts law schools to encourage law students to develop a habit of engaging in pro bono service. We learn as much as we can about pro bono legal services in Massachusetts so that we can improve these services over time. And we engage with members of the bar so that we can learn how to better support their pro bono efforts. Recently, the committee has taken on 2 new challenges: understanding and responding to pandemic-related pro bono needs, and understanding and responding to the ways in which systemic racial injustice intersects with pro bono issues. Depending on the year, there are about 15 members of the SJC Pro Bono Committee. 1 member of the committee is an SJC justice. We were honored to have Chief Justice Kimberly Budd join us for several years. She has stepped down due to her new responsibilities as Chief Justice. Justice Elspeth Seifer recently joined the committee. We are grateful for her time and for her expertise. The director of the Access to Justice Commission sits ex officio with this committee. Carolyn Goodwin, the current director, has been a member of the committee for nearly 2 years. The remaining members are appointed by the justices of the SJC. They typically serve 2 3-year terms. It is a significant time commitment, and I would like to recognize and thank our committee members now. Our subcommittee chairs provide countless hours of leadership for our various projects. They are Ariel Clemmer, Shanika Davis, George Michalak, Kim Parr, Patrice Sabak, and Gordon Shaw. Kim Parr, the chair of our recognition committee, had hoped to be part of our program today, but is unable to join us. Ariel Clemmer, chair of our pandemic subcommittee, has kindly offered to serve in her place. We could not implement any of our projects without the generous contributions of our additional committee members, Marissa Elkins, Felicia Ellsworth, Bill Gabovich, Victoria Gottney, Val Ribeiro, and Steve Russo. I would also like to thank, excuse me, 3 individuals from the legal community who have stepped up to support the committee's work on pandemic issues. Mia Friedman, Meredith Parker, and Lee Mestry. We are very grateful to you for your generous support. I would like to thank Marissa Elkins for 5 years of service on this committee. Her contributions have been invaluable, and we will truly miss her. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to our newest committee member, Jamil Moore. She will officially join the committee next Monday, and we are thrilled to have her. Our committee seeks new members each year, typically in the summer. I urge Massachusetts attorneys in the audience to consider applying for membership on this wonderful committee. My term as chair of the SJC Pro Bono Committee ends this week. I would like to thank the justices of the SJC for appointing me to this position. It has been a privilege to serve in this role. The opportunity has also been a gift. It has grounded me during the pandemic, and it has afforded me the opportunity to work with some exceptional people. Working with Chief Justice Budd and Justice Seifer has been a very special honor, and I have cherished it. Spending time with the impressive and generous members of the SJC Pro Bono Committee has been educational and life-affirming. Carolyn Goodwin regularly inspires me with her deep knowledge of pro bono issues and her cheerful willingness to add tasks to her already overflowing plate. I would like to thank Northeastern University School of Law, my employer, for its support of my work on this committee. Last but certainly not least, I would like to thank Chip Finney. Chip is the Deputy Legal Counsel to the Chief Justice of the SJC. In this capacity, he serves as a liaison between the justices and the Pro Bono Committee. Although he is not technically a member of the committee, he spends countless hours every week supporting the committee and its chair. I am very grateful for Chip's thoughtful and wise counsel, his gift for the felicitous phrase, and his unflagging support of me and the committee. I am thrilled to report that the justices of the Supreme Judicial Court have recently appointed Ariel Clemmer to chair the committee for the next 3 years. Ariel has served on the committee since 2018 and is deeply committed to pro bono service. You don't have to take my word for it. In 2020, Massachusetts Lawyers Weekly gave her the Excellence in Pro Bono Award. Ariel currently works as the director of the Center for Social Justice and as an adjunct professor at Western New England University School of Law. I am truly delighted to pass the baton to Ariel, and I'm genuinely excited about the innovative leadership I know she will provide for the committee. It is now my great honor to introduce to you Chief Justice Kimberly Budd. Chief Justice Budd was appointed as an Associate Justice on the SJC in August 2016 and was elevated to Chief Justice by Governor Baker last December. Chief Justice Budd, I know I speak for the entire Pro Bono Committee when I say that we are grateful for the time you so generously spent with us. We fondly remember our road trips with you to far-flung law schools, and we appreciate the perspective and expertise you brought to all of our discussions. Thank you for your ongoing commitment to access to justice. I now present to you Chief Justice Kimberly Budd.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for those kind words. On behalf of the justices of the Supreme Judicial Court, it's my great pleasure to welcome all of you to this celebration of pro bono legal services in the Commonwealth. I'd like to congratulate each Adams Award recipient and each pro bono honor roll participant on your accomplishments. By providing pro bono legal assistance to people who cannot afford an attorney, not only have each of you made an enormous difference in the lives of those clients you have helped, but your work has created a ripple effect, touching the lives of countless others. I commend you and thank you for all that you've done. I'd also like to thank the members of the SJC Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services and all the court staff who have worked behind the scenes to make this event possible. Thanks are especially due to Elizabeth Ennin for her service as chair of the Pro Bono Committee for the last 3 years. Elizabeth has been an energetic and thoughtful leader who's helped the committee launch several new initiatives during her tenure. It was a pleasure for me to work with her when I served as the SJC's representative on the committee as an associate justice. Elizabeth will be deeply missed, but the committee is also fortunate that she will be succeeded as chair by another talented member, Ariel Clemmer. I'm also grateful to my colleague, Justice Elspeth Seifer, for stepping in for me to serve as the SJC's representative on the committee. Justice Seifer, I hope that you're enjoying working with the Pro Bono Committee as much as I did. In a moment, Justice Seifer will be presenting this year's Adams Awards. But first, it is my pleasure to introduce Ariel Clemmer and the incoming chair of the Pro Bono Committee to present the Pro Bono Honor Roll.
Thank you, Chief Justice Budd. The Supreme Judicial Court Pro Bono Honor Roll was first established a decade ago at the urging of then Justice Ralph Gantz soon after he joined the Supreme Judicial Court. It was one of many initiatives he supported to recognize and encourage pro bono service. Initially, the Pro Bono Honor Roll recognized law firms, solo practitioners, and other legal organizations who met certain criteria for average hours of pro bono work and firm policies supporting pro bono service. Since then, 2 new categories have been added to the Pro Bono Honor Roll. In 2013, the Pro Bono Honor Roll began recognizing law students, and last year, the Honor Roll added a new category for individual attorneys. Despite the many challenges posed by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, we have had an extraordinary response to the Pro Bono Honor Roll this year. In just its second year, 739 attorneys qualified for the Pro Bono Honor Roll for individual attorneys. 311 attorneys provided at least 50 hours of pro bono legal services to qualify for honors, and 428 attorneys provided at least 100 hours of pro bono legal services to qualify for high honors. The collective impact of their work is enormous. A total of at least 58,000 hours of pro bono service delivered in the calendar year 2020. The law student numbers are similarly impressive. 258 law students have qualified for the Pro Bono Honor Roll for law students by providing at least 50 hours of law-related pro bono service over the course of their law school careers. Altogether, these students have donated at least 12,900 hours of pro bono service. Unfortunately, due to the volume of lawyers and law students participating in the Pro Bono Honor Roll, we cannot recognize each of you individually today, but we have added your names as new honorees to a webpage for the Pro Bono Honor Roll, and they will also be scrolled on screen at the end of today's program. And in the next several weeks, we will be sending you certificates recognizing your service either directly to you or through your law firm or law school coordinator. And finally, 4 law firms have qualified for the Pro Bono Honor Roll for legal organizations. They are Goodwin Procter, Foley Hoag, DLA Piper, and Ropes and Gray. To obtain this recognition, these firms certified that they treat pro bono hours the same as billable time or its equivalent, and that in calendar year 2020, their Massachusetts attorneys provided an average of 50 hours of pro bono service per attorney, or that 75% of their attorneys provided at least 25 pro bono hours each. Qualifying for this recognition is a significant achievement, and these firms deserve our congratulations. The Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services deeply appreciates the volunteer legal assistance that all of you, lawyers, law students, and law firms have provided. We understand, because we are lawyers too, and were once law students, how challenging it can be to make the time for pro bono service when you are already juggling the demands of your everyday work and family and other obligations. And we are so grateful for your dedication and commitment and the benefits you provide to your clients across the Commonwealth. And now it is my great pleasure to honor to introduce Justice Elspeth Seifer, who serves as the Supreme Judicial Court's representative on the Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services, to present our Adams Pro Bono Publico Award today.
Thank you. I'm sorry for that brief delay there. I muted myself. First, I'd like to thank you, Ariel, for your doing such a great job and for joining and agreeing to be chair of the committee after Elizabeth departs. And thank you, Elizabeth, for all of the work that you've done for the committee. It certainly has shown. Right now, however, it is my great pleasure to introduce our first Adams Award recipient, Samuel E. J. Breyer. Like all of our awardees, Attorney Breyer exemplifies an extraordinary commitment to providing pro bono services and improving access to justice that is profoundly inspiring. Since May 2018, Attorney Breyer has volunteered with the De Novo Center for Justice and Healing, an organization in Cambridge that provides free civil legal assistance and affordable counseling to low-income people. Attorney Breyer's work with De Novo has focused on providing family law representation for domestic violence survivors and their children. And in the short period of time since he began volunteering with De Novo, he has devoted an astounding 3,300 hours of time to his time to pro bono legal assistance for his clients. As described in De Novo's letter nominating him for the award, the cases Attorney Breyer handles are complex, highly contested family matters. By taking on these difficult, time-consuming cases, he has significantly expanded the range of services that De Novo can provide and the number of clients it can serve. His clients often face many personal challenges and barriers to justice, including limited or no English language proficiency, immigration status issues, mental health complications, trauma due to past domestic violence or other life experiences, and the ongoing risk and fear of being victimized again by further violence or harassment. Given these challenges and the complexity of the cases, it would be very difficult for his clients to navigate the legal system and adequately assert their rights without his assistance. But Attorney Breyer does more than provide legal advice and zealous advocacy for his clients. In nominating him for his award, De Novo states that Attorney Breyer becomes the trusted ally of a client prepared not to trust anyone, gaining our clients' trust through recognition of their suffering and his offer of compassion, listening, steadfast patience, and persistence. In this way, he builds a bond with his clients that helps them weather the toughest times in their lives. For example, De Novo recounts the story of one of Attorney Breyer's clients, a domestic violence survivor whose former abuser continued to try to harass her despite a restraining order and criminal charges. She lived in fear that he would discover where she lived. Attorney Breyer not only successfully prevented disclosure of her address, but went out of his way to be available and supportive to his client. She later wrote a letter describing how affirming and sustaining his unwavering support had been. Attorney Breyer's devotion to his clients and pro bono service is hardly surprising. When you look at the whole arc of his career, he has dedicated most of his professional life to helping others. After graduating from college, he served for 2 years as a Peace Corps volunteer in Mauritania, West Africa. During this time, he developed a business plan to improve local economic growth, brought business education programs to young adults, and worked with the local hospital to provide support on issues of childhood and maternal health. One summer during law school, Breyer served as legal fellow for a legal aid organization in Sierra Leone. In this role, he represented over 40 farmers in property disputes, designed and taught classes for paralegals and local community leaders, and assisted in solving disputes with local chiefs concerning the care of mentally disabled youth, among other activities. After earning his JD, he worked as a law and democracy fellow in Liberia and a legal education fellow with Iraq Access to Justice. In Iraq, he taught international law, human rights, legal writing, and worked with local lawyers to advocate for women and children. Next, he served as a country representative and legal education director at the African Prisons Project in Uganda and Kenya, where he established the organization's first office. He authored and implemented a legal curriculum and training program to help prisoners advocate for themselves and for fellow inmates. And he provided legal training and support to women inmates, many of whom had experienced domestic violence. His work resulted in inmates receiving diplomas in the first ever graduation of law students in Kenyan prisons. And then he served as a consultant for the Institute for Justice and Democracy in Haiti, assisting that organization in seeking relief for the victims of the cholera epidemic that devastated that country in 2010. Most recently, he has worked as a program officer for an educational travel company, Explorica, even while taking on this impressive work with De Novo. For his extraordinary commitment to pro bono service here in Massachusetts and to improving access to justice throughout the world, the SJC Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services is pleased to present a 2021 Adams Pro Bono Publico Award to Attorney Samuel Breyer. Congratulations, Attorney Breyer. You are an inspiration.
Well, those are just the nicest things anybody's ever said about me. Thank you so much, Justice Seifer. Thank you, Chief Justice Budd, for taking your time to be here today and for your kind remarks regarding pro bono service. Thank you to the Supreme Judicial Court and Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services and Committee Chair Elizabeth Ennin, both for this award and for all the committee does in support of pro bono work across the state. And thank you to everyone who's worked behind the scenes to make today possible, including Chip Finney, who answered my onslaught of questions throughout the weeks. I've had a chance to look at today's awardees and those of past years. This is an incredible company to be joining. And congratulations to my fellow awardees today. I'm looking forward to hearing your stories and learning about your work. If you allow me, I'd like to take this time to make the subtext of this event text. I have to imagine if you're spending your Tuesday afternoon watching this, then you're at least a little like me. You're someone interested in public service, viewed as a critical resource for your community you live in as a way to contribute in a direct and hopefully a profound way to the lives of those around you. So let me just say first, thank you. The world needs more of you. If you're watching this but are unsure of how to help and where, then at the end of these remarks, I'd like to give a few quick pitches for organizations that truly could use your assistance. But first, more about me. A solo practitioner that rarely practiced. I hadn't seen the inside of a US courtroom in about 8 years when I approached De Novo asking if I could be helpful. And to be honest, I wasn't sure what I was getting into. When it was suggested I assist with family law cases involving domestic violence, one thing popped into my head. I was eminently unqualified for this work. I was mistaken. I was severely unqualified only. With the help of both the Volunteer Lawyers Project, their Family Law 101 training program, and the constant support of De Novo staff, I did get up to speed. What I don't think I realized then was how mistaken I was about my expectation and perception of domestic violence work. In my head, initially, this was an opportunity to be something of a hero, dashing into courtrooms with a briefcase and a suit in lieu of a cape to save the day. But it's not really what happens with DV cases, at least not that often. My very first case was almost a textbook example of a client in need of a permanent abuse prevention order. Client had run from their spouse who had at various points set fire to the home as a means of retribution, made repeated threats to the client, and physically assaulted both the client and the client's child. I spent hours and hours reviewing the case. I memorized statutes, facts of the case. I prepared with a fervor that I had probably not applied to anything else in my life. I talked with the client whenever they had questions, but on the day in question, I had to do very little. I presented the case in less time than I will speak to you today, stood by my client as they addressed the court, directly telling the judge their story, and did whatever I could to protect them and their case when the opposing party presented their arguments. The judge awarded my client and their child the permanent order. There were a lot of tears and there were a lot of thanks. And yet I didn't walk away from that courtroom feeling like the hero I was so excited to be. I had barely done anything. And years later, it still kind of feels like I didn't do much in that moment. And then the client called back a few days later. They were preparing to start a new life, one where they felt they could finally be safe from their former spouse. And they wanted to thank me, not for the time arguing before the judge, but for speaking with them about the case, explaining the process, and mostly for listening to them. Most of my clients didn't really want that mythical hero with a briefcase to step forward in the courtroom. They want someone who would take an hour out of their day to listen to them, make suggestions to help them understand options and ground expectations, and hear them when they said something wouldn't work. After years, maybe even decades of abuse, of gaslighting, of isolation, they want someone who would validate their concerns, would hear them, and help them find a path forward that worked for them, even if it wasn't necessarily the path I thought they should pursue, not the one I would have advocated for. Because a lot of time, the things I thought were obvious solutions to problems too often weren't viable options for these clients. I'm going to try to avoid sounding like a PBS membership tripost, but you can make a huge difference in someone's life by just helping them understand the rights, rules of the court, how to present themselves before a judge. Because these are all things that tend to be foreign to most people, and they're things that we as attorneys can sometimes take for granted. But an hour or two with a client can provide them with confidence enough to take practical, concrete steps in reclaiming their lives and ensuring their rights are respected. You can be an advocate for these people. You let them say for the first time something they may have never expected they would say in their life. My lawyer. There's tremendous power in knowing you have people who will support you. You can be one of those people. Doing this work, you probably won't be the hero that saves someone's life, but you might help someone save their own. So here I just want to say a special thanks to both De Novo and VLP, two organizations that I think would gladly welcome help. VLP for the multitude of training programs they host, the family law clinic they run every Wednesday for low-income clients. It's a great way to learn and to practice in an area that can make a huge difference in someone's life in only a few hours. Special thanks to Cindy Palmquist, who ran the Family Law 101 training program when I attended it, and to Sarah Lee and Geraldine Grubas-Pizarro, who run the training program now. I should make the disclosure that Sarah Lee and I got married about a year ago, but try not to hold that against her. De Novo, for all the training that they provided me with and the support they offered, they are a groundbreaking organization that provides both legal services and counseling. Ellen Wilbur in particular is simply amazing, both as a lawyer and a human being, taking my calls at literally all hours of the day and night, as I started to panic about my first case, my second case, really all of my cases. The entire family law team of Ellen Wilbur, Elizabeth Bruzy, Tanasia White, Hania Vahidi, and Isa Ormsby, are wonderful, as is the Housing and Disability Program led by Courtney Lebon, and the immigration team led by Valerie Fisk. And I should make particular attention to Karen Bobadilla, who taught me everything I know about special immigrant juvenile visas. I'd also like to thank Susan Corcoran, De Novo's volunteer director, who connected me with the work, Amanda Becker, De Novo's development director, Mojde Rouhani, and John Froyo, the amazing executive director and deputy director at De Novo, for their support and leadership, and the counseling division at De Novo, who helped me better understand trauma-informed support. I'd also like to thank my parents, who instilled in me the value of helping and supporting those around me, no matter what and no matter who they were. My lovely sisters, Justine and Alexandra, for putting up with me through all of these years and for relentlessly encouraging me in everything I've done. To my amazing wife, Sarah Lee, who helped me and support me throughout this endeavor and continues to amaze me every day, as well as our newborn son, Cormac. I love you all. Finally, I want to say thanks to all of my clients who, through incredible circumstances, found the strength and courage to continue moving forward against some of the most challenging conditions I've ever seen. You're the reason I kept coming back to this work. It has genuinely been my privilege to assist you, and has been the most rewarding work I've ever done. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations on your son. That was a really wonderful, wonderful few remarks. Those were wonderful remarks. I appreciated them and appreciated getting to know you just a little bit more. Okay, our next Adams Pro Bono Publico Award goes to Michael Jusek, a litigation associate at Seyfarth Shaw, for his exceptional pro bono work on behalf of unaccompanied immigrant minors. Since 2017, Attorney Jusek has been volunteering with Kids in Need of Defense, also known by the appropriate and acronym KIND. KIND provides legal representation for children who enter the immigration system alone. Working with them, Attorney Jusek has taken on the complex cases of 7 immigrant minors, and he has devoted hundreds of pro bono hours to this work, including over 200 hours in 2020 alone. In nominating him for an Adams Award, KIND tells us that of the more than 400 pro bono attorneys working on immigration cases with the Boston office, Attorney Jusek has distinguished himself as one of its most dedicated volunteers. The vulnerable clients that Attorney Jusek has represented were fleeing violence in their home countries and abuse, abandonment, or neglect from a parent, and each of their cases presented unique challenges. His first pro bono case with KIND involved a 15-year-old boy from Guatemala who was abandoned by his father before he was born. Later, he fled to the United States, hoping for a safer, more stable life. Attorney Jusek advocated for this client's older sister to be granted guardianship of her brother, and he was able to obtain a predicate order from the probate and family court, which allowed his client to apply for special immigrant juvenile status. The special status petition was approved, and Attorney Jusek is currently in the process of preparing the paperwork for his client to apply to become a lawful permanent resident. Even though it was beyond the scope of his legal case, Attorney Jusek also worked closely with his client, family members, school counselors, and more to enroll his client in school and explore other educational opportunities. In another particularly challenging case, Attorney Jusek and his Seyfarth colleague Ann Dunn worked to secure the release of a young man who had been detained by Immigration Customs Enforcement, even though he had no criminal record and there was a clear path for him to obtain a green card for permanent residency status. Despite an unfavorable ruling from the immigration court, they persisted in seeking to free their client. They filed a habeas corpus petition on behalf of this young man in federal court in Rhode Island, where the ICE detention facility was located. And ultimately, Attorneys Jusek and Dunn were successful in convincing a federal judge to order their client's release. Thanks to their efforts, this young man is now free to be with his family and his infant daughter, who was born during his detention, while he awaits a decision on his green card application. After his client's release, Attorney Jusek remarked that this case in particular will always stand out as a highlight to my career due to the legal issues involved, but primarily because at the end of the day, we were able to get him home to be with his infant daughter for the first time. Despite his already substantial pro bono caseload, Attorney Jusek has also stepped up to take on even more work when there has been an emergency need. For example, when a young woman needed representation in her asylum case, he said, "I don't intend to let her appear at an asylum hearing by herself, so I'll figure something out." He spent hours working on last-minute motions to ensure the client had access to all forms of relief for which she was eligible. Attorney Jusek's dedication to pro bono service is all the more remarkable because he has made the time for it while carrying on a busy litigation practice representing and advising national financial institutions in matters involving bankruptcy, foreclosure, and state and federal regulation. Indeed, one of the managing partners of Seyfarth's Boston office tells us that Attorney Jusek has even foregone opportunities to earn bigger billable hour bonuses so that he could focus on his pro bono practice. Attorney Jusek's impact has extended beyond his own pro bono practice, however. His managing partner says that he has been a leading voice for pro bono service within the firm and has provided opportunities and guidance for attorneys, paralegals, and staff who want to get involved. Kind also reports that Attorney Jusic's enthusiasm for pro bono work has expanded its collaboration with Safebarth. In 2019, he helped to organize a Kind presentation at the firm's Boston office. This in turn led additional attorneys to volunteer their services, enabling Kind to place 3 additional children's cases with them. For his tireless devotion to his pro bono clients and his efforts to expand pro bono service by his colleagues, the Supreme Judicial Court Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services is pleased to present a 2021 Adams Pro Bono Publico Award to Attorney Michael Jusic. Congratulations, Attorney Jusic.
Thank you so much, Justice Cipher. I'm not sure that anything that I can say in the next few minutes will compare to the kind words you just said about me, and I'm so touched and thankful and grateful. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Chief Justice Budd, as well as the entire SJC and the SJC Pro Bono Committee, along with my fellow honorees. Learning about both of you and your practices and what you have done to help people has been truly inspiring. And I'm just so honored to be in your company, along with the company of past winners of this award, as well as all the future winners that will be coming after us. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Saifarth Shaw for their unwavering support of pro bono activities and pro bono work. It's been an amazing experience to be able to devote a significant part of my practice and my time to working on these cases and with these clients that I have to help them as best we can through the immigration system. I'd also like to particularly call out and thank my co-counsel, Annie Dunn. I've worked with her and had the privilege of working with her for the past 5.5 years on civil cases as part of our, I guess I would say, normal civil practice. Having the opportunity to work with her on the pro bono case, pro bono habeas case, was such a fantastic experience, and we could not have had the result that we did without Annie's tireless work for our client in that case. So Sam had mentioned special immigrant juvenile status in his remarks, and I think at this point, without going too deep into all of the specifics, it's helpful to know a little bit about what that is. There's a statute, so it cannot be taken away by executive action, which provides a path to citizenship or path to a green card and potentially citizenship for immigrant juveniles that have come to the country unaccompanied. In other words, they've come without parents or without guardians. The way it works is that the child first must go to the state family or probate court and obtain an order from the state judge, which is called special findings of facts and rulings of law. And essentially, the state court judge must find that the child has been abused, abandoned, or neglected by his or her parents, and that it would be in that child's best interests to stay in the United States with a guardian, rather than being returned to their home country. Once you have that finding in hand, you then apply for special immigrant juvenile status with the immigration authorities. Once that petition is approved, you then go to the immigration court or to USCIS and apply for adjustment of status, which once, assuming that is granted, your child client will have a green card and lawful permanent residence. So with so many steps along the way, it can be a long, drawn-out process. Most of the clients, especially the ones that I have worked with, they're already in immigration proceedings, so the threat of deportation is constantly in the background and hanging over their heads. So it's important that you spend the time with your clients to explain what's going on and to move the case forward as quickly as you can, as well as ensure that the immigration court is aware that this application is proceeding, and attempt to essentially have as much time as you can before a deportation order could enter. So like so many other people, when I went to law school, I had visions and the hope of helping others with my law degree. I really didn't know how I would do that when I was in law school, but I kept my mind open and my eyes open. I looked for opportunities to help people where I could. When I joined Seyfarth Shaw about 5.5 years ago, I had found a place that had those opportunities, and it was very supportive of pro bono work and wanted to see their associates and their new attorneys committing to this sort of work, regardless of what area of law you're practicing. I had become especially interested in immigration law, primarily thanks to my wife, Jessica, who was a school teacher, a high school teacher with Boston Public Schools for over a decade. She worked at a school and taught primarily English language learners. So during her years at Boston Public Schools, I would come in from time to time. I would meet her students either at social events or occasionally giving talks about careers in the legal field. And many of my wife's students were from Central America or from other countries where they may be beset by some instability and were coming to the United States in search of a better life and more stability and an education. So the more I got to know these kids, the more my heart was touched, and I wanted to find a way to work and help them and be involved in that space. After joining Seyfarth, I ended up connecting with Kids in Need of Defense, KIND, and began developing this relationship with them. They provided training to give an overview of the immigration court system and how special immigrant juvenile visas work and how they're obtained. And they essentially provided help and support and guidance every step along the way. Working with their attorneys has been unbelievably inspiring to me. The fact that they are devoting their lives and their entire practice to these kids who really need help is just such an amazing thing to see and to work with. And the experience and the talent that they have is second to none. Being entrusted with these important cases is such an honor. I'm fully aware, and everyone at KIND as well is aware of how important they are. We're talking about people's lives and their future, and not just their lives, but potentially their children coming up as to where when they have children, where those children will grow up, where other family members are going to live with them. And everything we do here has the potential of having either a very positive or potentially negative effect on their lives. So it's a responsibility that we all take very seriously. It's also important to note that in the immigration court, in the immigration system, there's no right to counsel as there would be in a criminal case. Ostensibly, immigration court is not a criminal proceeding. Therefore, there's no right to counsel. So it's important work that KIND does to attempt to ensure that no child has to face an immigration judge or an immigration proceeding alone by themselves. Justice Seifer gave a little bit of some information about a couple of the cases that I've worked with. I'd like to just give a few more details about these children, because getting to know them as their attorney has been such an honor for me and really an eye-opening experience. Their stories are incredible. My client from Guatemala, he's been in the United States for several years now, and the reason he fled from his country to look for safety in the United States is that there was periodic violence between his small village and a neighboring village. There's a dispute over water rights that the government has never been able to resolve or mediate. And periodically, the two sides would begin fighting over the water rights. And as I learned, these conflicts would start fairly low level, involving fists, kicking, some maybe minor fights. And then over time, they escalate and escalate, where weapons start being used, knives, and ultimately guns. When my client was about 14 years old, the violence was escalating. Guns were being used by the two sides, and the men of his village came around to each house, and they said that every family member has to send one member out in the middle of the night to help us dig trenches for fighting positions. So it fell upon my client to do that, as his father was not part of his life, and his mother was physically unable to do this. So my client, 14 years old, instead of going to school, instead of sleeping, getting ready, thinking about tests, all those things of high school life that we might think about here in Massachusetts, he was out in the middle of the night digging trenches to attempt to defend his village and from which the men could fight. One night, the other side discovered where they were working and began shooting at my client and the other people digging trenches with him. Fortunately, my client was able to run away and hide in the woods for quite some time without having been injured. But it was at that point that he decided that he needed to flee Guatemala and attempt to come to the United States. He was apprehended at the border and released to the custody of his sister living in the greater Boston area, who had already come to the United States. I've been working with, as I said, I've been working with him for several years now. I'm very pleased that his application for special immigrant juvenile status has been approved. We're looking forward to finishing his paperwork. His perseverance and the amount of adversity that he's overcome, yet still always maintains a sunny demeanor. He's always very happy to speak. I love interacting with him and talking to him every time we have a conversation, and he really just keeps me grounded. And I'm excited to see what he does with the rest of his life here in the United States. The second case that was mentioned, and again, this is where I give a special thanks to Andy Dunn, involved the habeas corpus proceeding. Our client in that instance was fleeing El Salvador from gang violence. While he was here in the United States, he was represented by Jose Carrasquillo of Kind in the immigration court, who was proceeding with the special immigrant juvenile status in those applications. In the meantime, he was going to school at East Boston High School, and like many other high school students, he would hang out at the local parks after school. One day, despite never having a criminal record or even any interactions with the police, ICE decided that he must be a member of the very gang that he had fled his country from, and picked him up, detained him, and refused to grant him bond. I won't go through all the twists and turns of the legal proceedings, which eventually involved him being released thanks to a federal court order on a habeas petition. But suffice it to say that particular case, especially knowing that he had an infant daughter that he was unable to see, she was actually born while he was detained. That case really brought home how important all of these issues are, and just how important it is that these kids have attorneys to represent them in their immigration proceedings. I can't imagine facing what he faced on my own, especially knowing that he's not from the country, he's not familiar with the culture, didn't even speak the language, and here he is being held in custody indefinitely. So again, that was an amazing case, an inspiring case to get that result, and to watch my client and know that he was able to reunite with his young family. Overall, I just wanted to conclude with some additional thanks, but first, just a call for anyone that is watching today and wants to get involved. I'll echo the words of Sam. Kind, it's an incredible organization. The work is important. If you don't know anything or have not practiced immigration law, please don't let that stop you or dissuade you from exploring whether or not you'd be able to work with Kind. Just as the kids are not left alone to face immigration court, the attorneys working with Kind are not left alone either. I'd like to especially thank everyone in the Boston office, especially Jessica Moles, Ashley Barcuda, Jose Carrasquillo, and Alexandra Carroll, who I've been working with for years and have helped guide me and will help guide any other attorneys that volunteer with Kind. I'd also like to thank especially Judge Thompson. I had the distinct honor and privilege of serving her as a law clerk on both the state and federal court levels. I got to see every time she took the bench how she treated litigants and every person that came before her, and the care and respect that she showed to everyone on every side, and every litigant, whether represented by counsel or not, is something that I attempt to do my best to emulate in my own practice. I'd also like to thank my parents who showed the way by example as I was growing up, and even today, and constant sources of inspiration and advice. Finally, my wife Jessica has been my rock for many, many years, ever since we first met. I'm also amazed by the amount of care and time she puts into her work, and the amount of the devotion she's had to her students. And finally, my children, Isabella, Eloise, and Henry, they really keep me grounded and help me to make sure that I never take myself too seriously, or at least that I don't do so for very long. Again, thank you to Justice Seifer, thank you to Chief Justice Budd, and thank you to the Pro Bono Committee.
Thank you, Attorney Jusick, and thank you also for the additional detail about your clients. That was very interesting. And as far as your children go, I think they're very lucky to have you as a dad. So I'm sure they're going to do great things too. Our final Adams Award recipient is Bethany Sirota. Attorney Sirota is Deputy Director of Programs and Operations at the Mayor's Office of Workforce Development for the City of Boston. She is also an active member of the Massachusetts Black Lawyers Association, where she has served as secretary, as chair of the Community Service Committee, and as an at-large director. Attorney Sirota has also made always pro bono service an important part of her legal practice. Over the last 7 years, she has provided over 1,000 hours of pro bono assistance in a variety of settings, including representing indigent clients in family law cases and participating in Know Your Rights educational programs. But just as importantly, she has also used her leadership roles to encourage, organize, and support pro bono service by other attorneys to help hundreds more people in need. As the MBLA stated in nominating Attorney Sirota for this award, even more remarkable than her individual pro bono hours and direct client impact is that her dedication to service has created an opportunity and facilitated the participation of countless other attorneys in pro bono legal programming, always centering the legal needs of persons of limited means and those from historically underserved population. Last year, the MBLA challenged each of its members to pledge at least 10 hours of pro bono service. Attorney Sirota was instrumental in recording attorney pledges and organizing opportunities for pro bono service, including criminal record sealing and expungement training in clinics, providing legal assistance to guests of Rosie's Place, and working with the Volunteer Lawyers Project to provide education, training, and assistance for low-income landlords affected by economic disruptions resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. She also personally participated in many of these pro bono activities as well. Similarly, in her work for the City of Boston, Attorney Sirota has played a leading role in connecting Boston residents with pro bono assistance to seal and expunge criminal records that might otherwise be barriers to housing and employment. She knew that the criminal justice reform legislation enacted in Massachusetts in 2018 made it easier for people convicted of low-level offenses to seal and expunge their criminal records, but only a fraction of those eligible were taking advantage of this opportunity. To address this issue, Attorney Sirota spearheaded the creation and implementation of Project Opportunity, a pilot program to connect Boston residents with volunteer attorneys through the Lawyers Clearinghouse to assist them in sealing and expunging their records. The city covers all of the filing costs, so the program is free to the residents. In collaboration with several city departments, the program also connects participants with employment opportunities, job training and related services such as housing, food access, and transportation. Despite the challenges of operating during the pandemic, The program served over 300 residents during its first year. In a video conference promoting Project Opportunity, then Mayor Marty Walsh especially recognized Attorney Sirota for her efforts, noting how passionate she is about this program. In addition to her own pro bono service and support for other attorneys providing volunteer legal assistance, Attorney Sirota has been extraordinarily active with a variety of community organizations. She co-founded and for many years co-directed Girls Rule, which offered empowerment workshops for teenage girls in Roxbury, addressing topics such as education, career choices, social and emotional development, mental health, and healthy lifestyle choices. She is currently board co-chair of the Neighborhood Birth Center, an organization dedicated to creating a freestanding community-based birth center in Boston. She is a board member for Nurtury, which provides care and education for young children in Roxbury, Jamaica Plain, and Cambridge. She is on the board of Sarita and Claire Wright Lucas Foundation, which offers bar exam scholarships for African-American women interested in pursuing careers as prosecutors. And she works with a number of other neighborhood associations in Roxbury and Dorchester. Through her support for pro bono legal assistance and her other community activities, Attorney Sirota is constantly striving to make a difference for the people of Boston. And in recognition of her many contributions and her inspiration, the Supreme Judicial Court Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services is pleased to honor her with a 2021 Adams Pro Bono Publico Award. Congratulations, Attorney Sirota, another inspiring young lawyer. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Cipher, for the elaborate introduction. Greetings, everyone, and to Chief Justice Kimberly Budd, the first Black woman Chief Justice of the Massachusetts Supreme Court. It is beyond a true honor and privilege to share this space and time with you. Many thanks to the SJC Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services for selecting me as a 2021 John Adams and John Quincy Adams Pro Bono Publico Award recipient. And a very dear and special thank you to the Massachusetts Black Lawyers Association for this prestigious nomination. I am so deeply honored to receive this award. It carries with it so much significance and meaning for me. And it really is such a great honor to follow on the heels of Access to Justice Fellow, Corey Reform Extraordinaire, and last year's Adams Award recipient, Attorney Crispin Birnbaum, with whom I work very closely in my work to support residents with criminal records and free Corey sealing and expungement clinics. Thank you to Chip Pinney, Meg DeMarco, and the entire technical team for ensuring that today's virtual event runs smoothly. I also want to acknowledge my fellow 2021 Adams Award recipients, Attorneys Jusick and Breyer, and thank you both for your amazing commitment to service as well. To my deeply empathetic and clever and very funny 9-year-old son, Jace Naeem, thank you for always reminding me of gentle kindness for all people. To my Aunt Nicole Green, thank you for always pushing me to do the right thing and reminding me that my work as a Massachusetts attorney is not about the money, it's about justice. And that whenever I can, I must represent all who seek help, whether they can afford to pay or not. And finally, I'm filled with gratitude for the legacy of my late grandmother, Eunice May Chisholm, and in her honor, in honor of her true embodiment, I quote Hebrews chapter 13, verse 2. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have entertained angels without knowing it. I became a public servant because as a young person in the permanent custody of the Department of Social Services, now the Department of Children and Families, and as someone who benefited greatly from the many resources and youth programs, mentorship opportunities, and guidance from our city and state leaders, as well as lawyers and judges in the Commonwealth, I knew that it was incumbent upon me to use my professional and legal career, as well as personal endeavors, to pay it forward and serve the most vulnerable in our state. While I was in law school, Dr. Charles Ogletree shared a quote by Charles Hamilton Houston, where he opined that A lawyer is either a social engineer or he's a parasite on society. This notion further deepened my commitment to public service as an attorney, and my entire legal career has been dedicated to acting in the spirit of a social engineer for justice. While there are so many issues and causes that are so important to me, from early literacy among children of color, especially Black and brown boys between the 3rd and the 5th grade, in order to ensure limited to no contact with the criminal justice system as juveniles and adults, to juvenile justice, to children who are aging out of the foster care system. Thanks to a reading of Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in an Age of Colorblindness, about a decade ago, I became charged with supporting people impacted by their criminal record, incarceration, and the criminal justice system as a whole. Whether by having our rising star young ladies of Girls Rule from Academy Homes in Roxbury share information about voting rights and voting eligibility for convicted felons and formerly incarcerated residents in our neighborhoods, or representing young people who are duly involved in the foster care and juvenile justice system, I have found a deep passion and in many ways a responsibility to use my bar license, my time, my network, and resources to ensuring that barriers to housing, employment, education, and vital resources and opportunities are broken down for residents and families impacted by their quarry. With so much credit to the late Honorable Chief Justice Gantz, when the 2018 Criminal Reform Bill was signed and eligibility for the quarry sealing and expungement became less stringent, I knew we were on the right track and that this was work that I needed to help undertake. Under the leadership of former Boston Mayor Walsh and several city departments, and in collaboration with the Lawyers Clearinghouse, with the volunteer lawyers trained and led by Access to Justice Fellow and 2020 Adams Award awardee, Attorney Crispin Birnbaum, Project Opportunity was launched last year and has been able to offer free quarry sealing and expungement counsel and legal representation through the entirety of the process. And we've been able to serve hundreds in our virtual quarry sealing and expungement clinics. In the words of Attorney Birnbaum, we have only touched the tip of the iceberg, and there's still so much work to be done, with only a quarter of those eligible for sealing and expungement actually being served. With that, I want to encourage all of you to continue to join in the work of service as social engineers and explore pro bono service opportunities through the Lawyers Clearinghouse or volunteer opportunities through the bar associations such as the MBLA, or serving as a lawyer for the day at our court service centers in the Commonwealth, or legal service agencies such as Volunteer Lawyers Project. Our most vulnerable residents, litigants, communities, and justice system rely deeply on our service. So wherever we can, let us lend our time, support, hospitality, and kindness generously, because we will always be blessed by helping people in need, and because you never know when you're entertaining angels. Thank you again for this honor.
Thank you, Samuel, Michael, and Bethany, for your remarks, which were deeply moving. Your service has been extraordinary, and by offering such thoughtful comments today, you have no doubt inspired others to volunteer their time to pro bono cases and issues. We would not have an Adams Award program were it not for the people in the community who take the time out of their very busy schedules to put together nomination packets. So we would like to thank all of our nominators for their willingness to help us identify, recognize, and celebrate exceptional pro bono service. As I'm sure all of you know, events like this don't happen without a lot of people doing a lot of work behind the scenes. I would like to thank the following people whose hard work made this event possible. SJC Executive Director Carol Lev and Administrative and Program Director Blanca Tosado for their help with planning today's ceremony. Erica Gully Santiago, Kathleen Capstick, and Vanessa Scott of the SJC Public Information Office for their extensive assistance with web content and communications related to this event and to the Pro Bono Honor Roll. Christy Lamont, Web Manager for the Trial Court, for designing the certificates for the Adams Award and the SJC Pro Bono Honor Roll. And for the help with producing and presenting today's ceremony online, Kate Doolett of the Trial Courts Judicial Institute, Jeff Travers, Deputy Chief Information Officer for the Judicial Information Services, Meg DeMarco, Forms and Technology Administrator for the Executive Office of the Trial Court, and Chris Dwyer, the Digital Media Production Manager for Suffolk University Media Services. If you have been inspired by what you've heard today, and I suspect you have been, I urge you to seek out opportunities for providing pro bono legal services for the many residents of Massachusetts who truly need your help. Here are 2 ways you can find a pro bono case or project that fits your schedule. First, you can always find a list of pro bono opportunities on a special website, massprobono.org. That's massprobono.org. There you will find a wide range of opportunities in areas such as civil rights law, consumer law, disability law, family law, housing law, immigration law, and public benefits law. Second, Suffolk University Law School and the Boston Bar Association are hosting a virtual pro bono affair tomorrow. It starts at 4 p.m. This event is open to attorneys of all levels and to all law students. This is an excellent chance to learn about current pro bono opportunities in Massachusetts. For more information, visit the Boston Bar Association site and click on the 2021 Pro Bono Month tile on the homepage. I'd also like to add a third here. Our recipients today mentioned specific organizations and opportunities that have been part of their experiences, and I would love to endorse those as well. And thank you very much for including them in your remarks. We're grateful for that. We invite you to stay on the live stream for a few additional moments so that you can see the names of all of the individual attorneys, legal organizations, and law students who have qualified for this year's SJC Pro Bono Honor Roll. Congratulations to all of the new members of the Honor Roll, and congratulations to our Adams Awards recipients, Samuel Breyer, Michael Jessic, and Bethany Sirota. Thank you all for joining us today. Good afternoon.